When my uncle sent me that video, my whole world shifted. There they were, my parents and my brother Thomas, sitting around our old kitchen table in Phoenix, talking about me like I was nothing more than a burden. The familiar Arizona sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow that felt like a cruel contrast to their cold words. "Lindsay only helps because she owes us," my mother said, her voice dripping with contempt. "After everything we've done for her, paying the mortgage is the least she can do." Thomas smirked. "Yeah, and she acts like she's doing us some huge favor. What a joke." The worst part? My father's quiet nod of agreement. The man who once taught me to ride a bike and helped me with math now sat there, letting them tear me down. The video was shaky, clearly taken without their knowledge, but their words came through crystal clear. I watched it 3 times, each viewing filling me with a strange mix of numbness and clarity. For the past 4 years, I had been making substantial payments on their mortgage through my LLC, Divine Investments. They thought they were paying a bank, never bothering to read the fine print of the agreement my financial advisor had arranged. Every month they made their small contribution while I covered the bulk of it, all while they complained about my minimal help. Then came my Uncle Jason's message. "You needed to see this, Lindsay. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. They've been talking like this for months." I sat in my home office staring at spreadsheets detailing every payment I'd made. The numbers didn't lie, over $200,000 invested to keep them comfortable in that house. My hands should have been shaking with anger, but instead, they were steady as I pulled up the mortgage agreement. A small smile played at my lips as I remembered the purchase option clause my financial advisor had insisted on including. "Just in case," she'd said. Looking back, I wonder if she had sensed something like this might happen. The next payment was due in 2 weeks, and for the first time, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I picked up my phone and typed a simple message to my uncle. "Thank you for showing me the truth. Don't worry, I won't let them know you sent this. But things are about to change." I had always been the family's safety net, though they'd never admit it. 4 years ago, when the Phoenix housing market crashed and they were on the verge of losing their home, I stepped in. I was 27 then, already successful as a software development manager. The irony, they never approved of my career choice. "Software isn't a real career for a woman," my mother used to say, lips pursed in disapproval. "Your brother Thomas is the one with real business sense." Yet Thomas, with all his so-called business sense, had nearly bankrupted the family company within 2 years of taking over. When they needed help with the mortgage, I consulted my financial advisor, Kate. She came up with a solution. Create an LLC, buy the house through it, and let them think they're still dealing with a bank. That way, you protect yourself legally while helping them. It seemed perfect. I could help without bruising their pride. The arrangement worked smoothly. Divine Investments LLC became their mortgage holder, and I quietly covered their payments. They maintained their dignity, and I kept them stable. Only Uncle Jason knew the truth. He had overheard Kate and me discussing it at a family gathering. "You're too good to them, Lindsay," he'd said. "They don't deserve your kindness." I had defended them. Their family. They may not understand my choices, but they've always given me a home. Now watching that video for the 4th time, I realized how wrong I'd been. Their words played on a loop in my mind. "She owes us." What a joke. The least she can do. Each phrase felt like a knife twisting deeper. I opened my laptop and logged into the LLC's account. The next mortgage payment was due on the 15th, just 2 weeks away. They had never been late before, always transferring their portion on time. But now, knowing how they truly felt, I had no intention of covering the rest. Let them deal with the bank on their own. They had no idea that the daughter they saw as a worthless burden was actually their landlord. The thought brought a smile to my face. Sometimes, karma just needs a little push, and the video wasn't the end of it. The next day, my uncle sent me screenshots of a family group chat I'd been deliberately excluded from. They had created it 6 months ago, calling it Family Finances. Each message was another betrayal, deeper than the last. "Lindsay thinks she's so special with her tech job," Thomas had written. "She barely helps with the mortgage while I'm here every day running Dad's business." My mother's response made my blood run cold. "We should ask her for more money. She's single with no kids. What else does she spend it on? After all we sacrificed to raise her, she can't even properly support her family." I pulled up my financial records, my hands trembling as I calculated the total. Over the past 4 years, I had contributed $267,843 toward their mortgage through Divine Investments. They had only paid $52,500. They had no idea I had been covering an extra $5,400 every month. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Sweetie, could you come to dinner this Sunday? We need to discuss something important." I knew exactly what that something was. They were planning to ask for more money, likely with a side of emotional manipulation and guilt. The thought of sitting there, pretending I didn't know what they really thought of me, made my stomach turn. I called Kate, my financial advisor. "I need to know my options with the purchase agreement." "I had a feeling you might," she said, unsurprised. "Remember that clause we included? If they miss a payment, Divine Investments can exercise the purchase option immediately. The house would be yours outright, and they'd become month-to-month tenants." A plan started forming in my mind. And if they were late with rent? Standard Arizona eviction laws would apply. You'd be within your rights to give them notice. She hesitated. "Lindsay, are you sure you want to go this route?" I thought about years of condescension, of being their ATM while they mocked me behind my back. I thought about Thomas running our father's business into the ground while they praised his business sense. I thought about every snide comment about my career, my life choices, and my supposed obligations to them. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I'm sure, but I won't tell them anything yet. Let them think everything's normal, for now." I texted my mother back. "Of course, I'll come to dinner. Looking forward to it." The heart emoji felt ironic, but necessary. After all, they had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge requires a perfect poker face. The next mortgage payment was due in 13 days, and for the first time since this arrangement began, I wouldn't be there to catch them when they fell. Sunday dinner was an exercise in self-control. I arrived at their Phoenix home at exactly 6 p.m., the setting sun painting the desert in orange and purple hues. The house, my house technically, looked the same as it had for the past 20 years. The familiar scent of my mother's lasagna filled the air, a calculated choice meant to remind me of happier times. "Lindsay, sweetheart." My mother rushed to hug me, her designer bracelet catching the light. It was new, probably bought with money they should have put toward their mortgage. Payment was due in 9 days. Thomas lounged at the dining table, looking smug in his pressed business casual attire. "Hey sis, good of you to make time for your family." I smiled, remembering his message about me barely helping. If only he knew his entire lifestyle depended on my generosity. "I always have time for family," I replied, the irony thick in my throat. My father emerged from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. He was reviewing papers, bank statements from what I could see. The sight nearly made me laugh. They were preparing their pitch carefully. Before we ate, my mother set down the lasagna and cleared her throat. "We wanted to talk about something important." She glanced at my father, who nodded encouragingly. "Of course," I said, serving myself a portion. "What's on your mind?" Thomas leaned forward. "Well, as you know, Dad's business has been facing some challenges. The real estate market isn't what it used to be." I took a bite of lasagna, chewing slowly. The business had been struggling ever since Thomas took over, despite the Phoenix market booming. "We've been thinking," my mother said, reaching for my hand across the table, "about how blessed we are to have such a successful daughter." I watched her performance with new clarity. The gentle touch, the mention of their sacrifices, it was all carefully choreographed. "The mortgage has become quite a burden," my father added, his voice carrying the same authoritative tone he'd always used to make me feel small. "And with you doing so well in your computer work." "Software development," I corrected automatically, though they had never cared about the distinction. Right. He waved dismissively. "Well, we thought you could help more with the monthly payments. After all, this is your family home too. If they only knew how much of it was already mine." "We're only asking for an extra $2,000 a month," my mother added quickly. "It's not much considering your salary." I took another bite of lasagna, using the moment to steady myself. They wanted more, when they didn't even realize I was already covering over $5,000 a month. The audacity was almost impressive. "I'll think about it," I said finally, keeping my voice neutral. Times are a bit uncertain right now. Thomas scoffed. Please, we all know you're doing fine. Unlike some of us who are actually working hard to keep this family's legacy alive. I smiled thinking about the bank notification they'd receive when they missed their payment next week. You're right, Thomas. Sometimes, we all get exactly what we deserve. After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom but took a deliberate detour past my father's study. The door was slightly open and I could hear them speaking in hushed voices. I paused, my heart pounding. She's not going to help, Thomas said bitterly. Did you see how she just sat there acting all superior with her tech money while our business is struggling? Patience, my father replied. We have another option. Remember those investment documents I found in her cloud storage when she used our Wi-Fi last month? She's been hiding money from us in some company called Divine Investments. My blood ran cold. They had snooped through my files. Last visit, I had carelessly used their Wi-Fi without a VPN and my cloud storage had synced automatically. I looked it up. My father continued. It's a legitimate LLC and doing very well. She's been squirreling away money there instead of helping her family. I raised a snake, my mother muttered. We'll give her one more chance to help voluntarily, she added. If not, I'll remind her about that time in college when she took money from your business account for tuition. She thought we never knew, but we have proof. She'll have to help us then. I bit my lip to keep from laughing. That money? I had borrowed it with my father's permission when their check for my tuition bounced. I had even paid it back within a month, with interest. I had emails proving everything. Their attempted blackmail was as pathetic as it was desperate. And if that doesn't work, Thomas added, we can always reach out to her HR department. Ask some questions about her mental stability. Maybe suggest she's been stealing company resources for personal projects. That would get their attention. The casual way they discussed destroying my career sent ice through my veins. These weren't family. They were parasites in family masks. I quietly slipped back to the bathroom, flushed the toilet for show, and returned to the dining room. Moments later, they followed, all wearing practiced smiles. Lindsay, dear, my mother said sweetly, have you given any thought to helping more with the mortgage? I met her gaze steadily. Actually, I have. You're right. Family should help family. I'll have an answer for you in about 8 days. The timing wasn't random. Their mortgage payment was due in 8 days, and I knew exactly what would happen when they missed it. Divine Investments would finally reveal its true ownership. Thomas frowned. Why such a specific timeline? I stood, gathering my purse. Just need to check some things with my financial advisor. You understand, right? Being careful with money is just good business sense. I smiled at Thomas as I echoed their favorite phrase. My mother walked me to the door, pulling me into another calculated hug. We knew you'd understand, sweetheart. Family always comes first. Yes, I agreed, thinking of the eviction notice I had already drafted. Family always gets exactly what they deserve. As I drove home, I called Uncle Jason. You were right about them, I said as soon as he picked up. But don't worry, I'm done playing the silent partner in their little drama. It's time for the final act. The week crawled by. My family bombarded me with daily texts about their urgent financial struggles. Each message only strengthened my resolve. I forwarded everything to Kate, my financial advisor, who was helping me prepare for the inevitable confrontation. The paperwork is ready, Kate confirmed 3 days before the payment was due. Once they miss it, Divine Investments can exercise the purchase option immediately. I've also prepared the eviction notices, just in case. I nodded, reviewing the documents. And you're sure everything is legally sound? They can't fight this? They signed the agreement 4 years ago, Kate assured me. Your father barely read it. He was too desperate for the bailout. Everything is airtight. That evening, my brother launched his own attack. Hey sis, his text read. I was just talking to a friend in tech recruitment. Heard some companies are doing layoffs. Must be scary for you. Good thing you have family to fall back on. Speaking of which, about that help we discussed? The manipulation was so transparent it was almost comical. The next day, I showed the message to Uncle Jason over coffee. They never change, he said, shaking his head. Your aunt and I watched them do this to everyone in the family. It's why we distanced ourselves years ago. Did you know they went through my files when I visited? I asked. Not surprised. He sighed. They did the same to your cousin when she stayed there last year. They're always looking for leverage. He studied me for a moment. Are you ready for the fallout? They won't take this well. I thought about their threats to contact my company's HR, their plans to blackmail me, their years of taking my help while mocking me behind my back. I'm ready, I said. They made their choice. Now they'll face the consequences. 2 days before the payment was due, my mother called. Lindsay, we need your answer about the mortgage help. Times are tough and family needs to stick together. Don't worry, Mom, I replied, my voice steady. Everything will be clear very soon. That night, I received an email from their bank. They had tried to transfer money to Divine Investments, but the payment bounced. Their account was already overdrawn. I forwarded the notification to Kate. Here we go, she replied. Want me to start the proceedings tomorrow? I thought about that dinner, their smug faces, their casual discussion of destroying my career, the years of manipulation, the constant demands, the endless ingratitude. No, I typed back. Let them wait until the payment officially fails. Let them think everything's fine for 2 more days. They had taught me well. Timing is everything. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my company's HR, documenting my family's threats and attaching the evidence Uncle Jason had gathered. Better to get ahead of any potential attacks. The end was in sight, and I was leaving nothing to chance. Sometimes, I muttered to myself, the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions. The payment deadline came and went. At 9 a.m., sharp, Divine Investments' automated system sent out its default notice. I watched my phone, counting the seconds until the inevitable call. It took exactly 12 minutes. Lindsay, my mother's voice was frantic. Something's wrong with our mortgage payment. The bank says we defaulted, but that's impossible. We need your help. Immediately. Actually, I replied calmly, Divine Investments isn't a bank. It's an LLC. My LLC, to be specific. Silence. What? She finally whispered. Check your email, I said. You'll find a notice explaining that, due to your default, Divine Investments is exercising its purchase option. The house is now legally mine. Your status has been changed to month-to-month tenants. This is a joke, she stammered. No joke, I said. I've been covering the majority of your mortgage for 4 years while you all mocked me behind my back, calling me a burden, plotting to blackmail me, even threatening my career. How did you? Uncle Jason showed me the video. I cut in. He showed me everything. Now, about your tenancy. Your first rent payment is due in 30 days. I'd suggest you start looking for somewhere else to live. My father's voice suddenly broke in. They had put me on speaker. You ungrateful. Careful, I interrupted. Is that any way to talk to your landlord? The eviction notice is ready. Don't make me serve it sooner than planned. I ended the call and blocked their numbers. Within minutes, my email flooded with messages from distant relatives and family friends, the flying monkeys as Uncle Jason called them. You're being cruel. Family should forgive family. I deleted them all without reading. Some debts can't be repaid with forgiveness. 3 months later, I stood in the empty house, my footsteps echoing through the vacant rooms. My family had finally moved out last week, forced to downsize to an apartment across town. They had tried everything, threats, guilt trips, even legal challenges, but the documents were ironclad. In the end, they had no choice but to accept reality. Thomas's attempt to sabotage me at work had backfired spectacularly. Thanks to my preemptive documentation and Uncle Jason's evidence, his accusations were dismissed immediately. Instead, his actions were reported to his real estate board, triggering an ethics investigation that effectively ended his career. My mother's final attempt at manipulation came through a tear-filled voicemail. How could you do this to your own family? The answer was simple. They had shown me exactly what family meant to them, and I had finally believed them. I walked through the kitchen, the place where it had all started, where they had sat around the table calling me worthless while I paid their bills. The irony wasn't lost on me. Uncle Jason and his wife were coming over later to help me prepare the house for sale. The proceeds would go toward establishing a foundation for victims of financial abuse. Something good could come from this after all. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Just heard from their lawyer. They're finally signing the last papers. It's really over. I smiled, looking around the empty house one last time. They had always told me that family comes first, but they never specified which family. I chose myself, and for the first time in years, that felt exactly right. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Loyalty should never be one-sided. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by actions. The people who truly love and respect you will never see you as a resource to exploit. If someone only values you when they need something, then they never truly valued you at all. I spent years bending over backward to help people who saw me as nothing more than a paycheck, and the moment I stopped, they turned on me. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't let guilt keep you trapped in toxic relationships. You owe it to yourself to set boundaries, to protect your peace, and to walk away when necessary. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. So, to anyone out there dealing with entitled, manipulative people, know your worth, stand your ground, and never apologize for putting yourself first. Good luck, and thank you for listening to my story.